It was a warm afternoon, the kind that makes the air feel thick with summer and smoke. The backyard buzzed with voices, folding chairs lined up around mismatched tables, balloons tied to tree branches swaying in the breeze. The grill hissed, burgers and hot dogs sizzling away while the cooler sat open, half emptied of beer and soda. Everything looked like a celebration: streamers, music, too many people laughing too loud. A banner hung crookedly above the back porch. Happy 50th, big guy, handwritten, a little sloppy, like someone remembered to make it at the last minute. His wife moved through the crowd like a host on autopilot, offering drinks, checking trays, fixing napkins. She wore that smile she always put on for people, big and bright, the one that came with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. When she saw him, she waved, mouthed, "Having fun," across the yard before turning away again. He nodded, though she was already gone. He stood near the grill, flipping patties, smoke curling up into his eyes. Friends drifted over, clapping him on the back, cracking jokes about the big 5-0, telling stories he didn't remember quite the same way. He laughed when he was supposed to, smiled because that's what was expected. All of it felt hollow, like he was watching it from just outside the edges. Someone handed him a beer he didn't ask for. A neighbor he barely spoke to made a toast about 50 years of holding it down, and people cheered. The kids were there, Corey with his friends, already on his third drink, and Mia sitting with a group of girls glued to her phone. They barely glanced at him when someone pointed out it was time for cake. The music lowered, and a hush spread through the yard. His wife stepped onto the porch, something glittery in her hand. "Okay, everyone," she shouted, full of excitement. "Before we cut the cake, I have a special gift for the man of the hour." People turned to look. Phones came out, a few chuckles already rising. She walked over to him, that same wide smile still stretched across her face. "Close your eyes," she said. He hesitated, then did as he was told. Something light was placed on his head. When he opened his eyes, the laughter hit instantly, loud and sudden, rolling through the crowd. Phones were up, snapping photos, some people doubled over. She was grinning, proud of her joke. "It's just a little something to mark the occasion," she said. He reached up and touched the thing. It was a paper party hat, gold and silver, letters scribbled across the front in thick black marker, "King of Letdowns." The smile on his face didn't move, but something inside him shifted. The sound of laughter felt sharp, too loud, like buzzing in his skull. Corey slapped the table, cackling. Mia covered her mouth, laughing like she couldn't believe it. Even his brother-in-law shouted, "That's brutal," and took another picture. He didn't say anything, just stood there while the camera flashes kept going, a beer in one hand, the spatula in the other. The crown stayed on his head. The house had gone still, the kind of quiet that settles when the last car pulls away, and the laughter is only a memory hanging in the walls. Empty plates and red plastic cups were scattered across the patio. Crumpled napkins stuck to the tablecloth. The smell of burnt charcoal lingered in the air. Inside, lights were still on, but no one was around. The kids had vanished, upstairs maybe, or already out with friends. Their rooms held nothing but closed doors and the hum of a phone screen. No thanks for the party, no good night. The kitchen was worse. Cake crumbs on the counter, a sink full of dishes, empty soda bottles lined up like a row of hollow soldiers. The silence wasn't peaceful. It pressed against the walls. No footsteps overhead, no laughter, no movement. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the wall clock that had been off by 10 minutes for the last 2 years. Shoes squeaked against the tile as the floor collected footprints from the crowd. The folding chairs still stood in the backyard, catching the moonlight. The tablecloth flapped in the breeze. The banner that said Happy 50th had started to sag at one end, slowly peeling from the tape. No one had thought to take it down. On the kitchen counter, a half-finished beer sat warm and forgotten. He dumped it out, rinsed the bottle, and started collecting cups, plates, the remains of the celebration. Trash bag in hand, he moved like a machine, muscle memory kicking in from years of being the last one to clean up. No one had asked him to, no one ever did. Halfway through, he spotted something in the bin, the party crown. Bent, glitter flaking off, one corner stained with barbecue sauce. The words, still clear, "King of Letdowns." Someone had tossed it without a second thought. Maybe it was her, maybe one of the kids, maybe nobody had cared enough to notice where it landed. He pulled it out, wiped the sauce off with a paper towel, and set it aside. He didn't know why he kept it. Maybe because it was the only thing from the whole day that had felt honest. The clock on the stove blinked 11:47. He looked around at the empty kitchen, the spotless counter, the bags tied and stacked by the door. Upstairs the lights were off. No sound, no one waiting to say good job or thank you. Just quiet. Years flashed through his mind. Driving the kids to practice, working late so they never felt a bill, birthdays planned, anniversaries remembered, broken things fixed before anyone noticed, always showing up, always on time, always making it work, and still the crown. Something cold settled in his chest. Not rage, not sadness, something slower, heavier, a truth, maybe, a thought he hadn't dared admit until now. I don't want to live like this anymore. The signs had been there tucked into everyday moments, dressed as normal life. The phone always face down on the table, notifications lighting up the screen, quickly silenced. Laughter at texts she never shared. Just work, she'd say, waving it off. Calls she took in the hallway, behind closed doors. Long silences afterward, her face unreadable. There were late nights too, more frequent over the past year. Team dinners, she'd explain. Last-minute meetings. Sometimes she'd come home with the scent of a different soap on her skin, like she'd showered somewhere else. He'd noticed once or twice, asked about it gently. She smiled, kissed his cheek, changed the subject. Vacations turned into obligations. She was always scrolling, always replying to someone else. At dinner, her fork moved, but she didn't taste anything. He spoke, and she nodded without hearing. Conversations thinned, then vanished altogether. Bedtime turned into back-turned silences. The space between them grew until it felt like another person had moved into the room, invisible but present. Friends mentioned things in passing. She seems busy lately, one said. Another asked if everything was okay between them, the kind of question wrapped in concern but edged with knowledge. He laughed it off, said work was keeping her on her toes. He didn't believe it, not really, but it was easier than digging into what he didn't want to see. There was a weekend she left for a conference. He found out later the company hadn't sent anyone. When he asked about it, she said it must have been miscommunication, that things got switched last minute. Her story was smooth, practiced, just believable enough to let it slide. He let it slide, again. They stopped kissing goodbye, stopped talking about their days. Intimacy faded into habit. Quick hugs, a pat on the shoulder, touch without warmth. Her eyes avoided his in moments that used to be tender. She laughed more on her phone than she ever did in their living room. He could feel her pulling away, inch by inch. He told himself it was stress, kids growing up, long marriages having quiet years. But deep down, the ache of doubt never left. He caught her once, smiling at her phone like she used to smile at him. That look, giddy, secret, alive, it hadn't been his in a long time. He remembered waking up in the middle of the night once, reaching for her and finding only cold sheets. She was downstairs, sitting in the dark, whispering into her phone. She didn't know he saw. He stood in the hallway, his heart thudding, waiting for her to hang up. She came back to bed without a word. All the moments rushed back now, clear as glass. He hadn't been blind, he just hadn't wanted the truth. But looking back, every excuse, every quiet warning, every hollow laugh had been a thread unraveling. He'd been holding it all together, hoping not to see it. But it had always been there. The street was quieter than usual when he pulled into the driveway. No one expected him to be home yet. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over the lawn. Her car was there, parked slightly crooked, like she had rushed in. The house looked calm from the outside, windows cracked open, curtains swaying in the soft breeze. The kind of day where everything seemed normal, but the air carried a weight that didn't belong. The front door was unlocked, shoes in the hallway, hers beside a pair of unfamiliar men's sneakers. A scent drifted through the space. Cologne, not his. Something citrusy, sharp. The house didn't hum with noise, no television, no music, just silence, soft and strange. A small laugh floated in from the backyard. Not loud, not meant for an audience. Just two people sharing something they shouldn't. He didn't walk fast. Every step was measured, slow, deliberate. Past the kitchen, past the family photos on the wall, smiles now faded by time. He reached the back door and stopped short. Through the glass, two figures sat close together under the patio umbrella. Her legs crossed toward him, her body tilted in that way she used to lean when she was interested. He recognized the man, not a stranger, a co-worker, someone she'd mentioned in passing just once or twice. He's harmless, she'd said, kind of awkward. But he didn't look awkward now. He looked comfortable, leaning in, his arm draped behind her chair. She was laughing, real laughter, the kind that touched her eyes, the kind he hadn't heard in years. Her hand rested lightly on the man's arm. No hesitation, no guilt, just ease. A connection she hadn't offered at home in a long time. He didn't move, didn't open the door, just watched, unseen. Her smile stretched wide. She looked younger in that moment, unburdened. She leaned forward, whispered something that made the man chuckle. Their heads were too close. Her fingers brushed something from his shoulder, slow and familiar. The man pulled something from his pocket, a small box. Not jewelry, not that kind, just something he wanted to show her. They laughed again, sharing a joke. She reached for his drink, took a sip like it was nothing, like it was hers too. The backyard, once a place for family dinners and birthday candles, now held something else, something private, something quiet, intimate. The air between them was heavy with history being rewritten. He stayed there still, not even breathing loud. His hand rested on the doorknob but never turned it. No confrontation came, no raised voice, no slamming door. He didn't storm outside or demand answers. Instead, he absorbed it all, let it sink in, every touch, every smile, every unspoken word. It was all the proof he needed. They didn't see him, never even looked his way. It was as if he'd vanished long ago, and this moment was simply confirmation of that truth. They existed in a bubble he was no longer part of, not even a memory. He backed away slowly, the hallway swallowing his footsteps. The laughter faded behind him. In the living room, the shadows had stretched longer. The TV remote still sat untouched on the coffee table, a blanket folded neatly on the couch. Every piece of his life looked the same, but something fundamental had shifted. There was no rage, no urge to destroy or accuse, only a strange, cold calm, the kind that settles in after a storm. His heart beat steady, not numb, not broken, just clear. He walked upstairs, past her things on the dresser, past the half-full glass of water by the bed. He stood there for a long while, looking at everything they'd built. A home, a family, a history. And yet nothing in the room felt real anymore. No noise came from the backyard. He imagined them still sitting there, wrapped in their moment, unaware that the world had changed. Not theirs. His. He didn't pack a bag, not yet. He didn't slam a door or leave a note. He simply sat at the edge of the bed, the crown from his birthday still on the dresser, the words facing him like a truth he could no longer ignore. King of Letdowns. And for the first time, he didn't wonder if they were right. He wondered why he'd ever let them define him at all. Stacks of papers began to disappear from the drawer one at a time. Bank statements tucked inside a folder beneath old tax forms. Insurance documents copied and
saved in a cloud account he hadn't touched in years. Passwords scribbled down in the back of an unused calendar. It all started quietly, without alarm or suspicion. A slow withdrawal from the life he'd once poured everything into. The key to the safe deposit box was wrapped in a sock at the bottom of his dresser drawer. His passport rested beside it. Each item gathered not in haste, but with care. No sudden movement, no trace left behind. He took only what mattered. Documents that proved who he was, records of what he had contributed. A quiet collection of the pieces he knew he might need if he wanted to start again. Every night, once the lights were out and the house fell into its usual hush, the notebook came out. The cover was plain, the pages lined. Nothing special, but it became the one place where honesty lived, Words filled the paper with steady rhythm, memories, conversations, doubts he'd swallowed for years. No one interrupted. No one asked what he was writing. He filled page after page, sometimes with full sentences, sometimes with single words that hurt more than whole paragraphs ever could. There were no plans for revenge, no schemes to make anyone hurt the way he'd been hurting. That wasn't what he wanted. Not anymore. Peace had become the thing he craved most. Not silence, the kind he'd endured for years, but peace. The kind that lets a man sleep without grinding his teeth. The kind that doesn't come from forgiveness or forgetting, but from finally choosing yourself. He thought about where to go, flipping through places in his mind. Somewhere far wasn't necessary, just somewhere still. Somewhere he had once felt like a person instead of a paycheck. The name came back to him slowly, an old town nestled near the hills, where time seemed to move like fog. He remembered a bookstore with creaky floors, a diner with terrible coffee and great pie. That's where he wanted to be, a place where nobody knew his name and nobody asked for anything. The room was small and cheap, but it didn't matter. It had a window, a door that locked, and no reminders of birthdays turned into jokes. He booked it on a whim, but it didn't feel reckless. It felt necessary, like breathing after holding his breath for years. He didn't tell anyone. No long conversations, no attempts to explain what couldn't be explained. He left the house the same way he'd lived in it, quiet, careful, unnoticed. The note was short. No tears, no apologies. Just a few words scrawled on a scrap of lined paper and left on the counter beside the coffee pot. I need time. Don't look for me. He packed a single bag, a few clothes, his wallet, the notebook, the dog's leash. He didn't take the family photos from the walls or the wedding ring from the nightstand. He didn't empty the drawers or clean out the closet. Those things could stay. They belonged to a version of him that no longer fit. The night he left, the moon was low and the sky clouded. Streetlights glowed soft against the pavement. The engine of the old truck rumbled to life, steady and calm. He didn't blast the radio or drive like he was running from flames. He just drove, the headlights catching the lines in the road like a guide out of a place that had forgotten his name. The dog curled up on the passenger seat, calm as ever, as if he understood that this time the direction mattered more than the destination. No one chased after the taillights. No doors slammed open. No phones rang with urgent questions. The house disappeared in the mirror without drama, just another shape in the dark. The road stretched ahead, empty and long, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like it belonged to him. The bus rumbled down a narrow road lined with pine trees, their tall shadows flickering across the windows like memories. The town emerged slowly from the mist, quiet and unbothered by time. Faded signs swung gently above old brick storefronts, a cafe with checkered curtains, a hardware shop that doubled as a post office, one gas station, one barber, no traffic lights, no rush, no noise louder than a bird call or a screen door closing. The dog stretched when the engine hissed to a stop. Leash clipped, paws hit gravel. Cool air filled the lungs, cleaner than expected, the scent of damp earth and old wood. No familiar cars in the lot. No one waiting at the curb. Just peace, wrapped in fog. Main Street was 3 blocks long, maybe less. People passed with nods instead of questions. No curious stares, just polite glances and quiet steps. A woman swept her porch. A man unlocked his shop and waved without pausing. It was the kind of place where people minded their own business without being unfriendly. A place where you could disappear and still be seen. The room above the bookstore was small but clean. Wood-paneled walls, a bed with a faded quilt, a desk by the window that overlooked the hills. The window stuck when opened, but the breeze that came through was worth the effort. Bookshelves lined the
saved in a cloud account he hadn't touched in years. Passwords scribbled down in the back of an unused calendar. It all started quietly, without alarm or suspicion. A slow withdrawal from the life he'd once poured everything into. The key to the safe deposit box was wrapped in a sock at the bottom of his dresser drawer. His passport rested beside it, each item gathered not in haste, but with care. No sudden movement, no trace left behind. He took only what mattered, documents that proved who he was, records of what he had contributed, a quiet collection of the pieces he knew he might need if he wanted to start again. Every night, once the lights were out and the house fell into its usual hush, the notebook came out. The cover was plain, the pages lined, nothing special, but it became the one place where honesty lived. Words filled the paper with steady rhythm, memories, conversations, doubts he'd swallowed for years. No one interrupted. No one asked what he was writing. He filled page after page, sometimes with full sentences, sometimes with single words that hurt more than whole paragraphs ever could. There were no plans for revenge, no schemes to make anyone hurt the way he'd been hurting. That wasn't what he wanted, not anymore. Peace had become the thing he craved most. Not silence, the kind he'd endured for years, but peace, the kind that lets a man sleep without grinding his teeth. The kind that doesn't come from forgiveness or forgetting, but from finally choosing yourself. He thought about where to go, flipping through places in his mind. Somewhere far wasn't necessary, just somewhere still. Somewhere he had once felt like a person instead of a paycheck. The name came back to him slowly. An old town nestled near the hills, where time seemed to move like fog. He remembered a bookstore with creaky floors, a diner with terrible coffee and great pie. That's where he wanted to be. A place where nobody knew his name and nobody asked for anything. The room was small and cheap, but it didn't matter. It had a window, a door that locked, and no reminders of birthdays turned into jokes. He booked it on a whim, but it didn't feel reckless. It felt necessary, like breathing after holding his breath for years. He didn't tell anyone. No long conversations, no attempts to explain what couldn't be explained. He left the house the same way he'd lived in it, quiet, careful, unnoticed. The note was short. No tears, no apologies. Just a few words scrawled on a scrap of lined paper and left on the counter beside the coffee pot. I need time. Don't look for me. He packed a single bag, a few clothes, his wallet, the notebook, the dog's leash. He didn't take the family photos from the walls or the wedding ring from the nightstand. He didn't empty the drawers or clean out the closet. Those things could stay. They belonged to a version of him that no longer fit. The night he left, the moon was low and the sky clouded. Streetlights glowed soft against the pavement. The engine of the old truck rumbled to life, steady and calm. He didn't blast the radio or drive like he was running from flames. He just drove, the headlights catching the lines in the road like a guide out of a place that had forgotten his name. The dog curled up on the passenger seat, calm as ever, as if he understood that this time the direction mattered more than the destination. No one chased after the taillights. No doors slammed open. No phones rang with urgent questions. The house disappeared in the mirror without drama, just another shape in the dark. The road stretched ahead, empty and long, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like it belonged to him. The bus rumbled down a narrow road lined with pine trees, their tall shadows flickering across the windows like memories. The town emerged slowly from the mist, quiet and unbothered by time. Faded signs swung gently above old brick storefronts, a cafe with checkered curtains, a hardware shop that doubled as a post office, one gas station, one barber, no traffic lights, no rush, no noise louder than a bird call or a screen door closing. The dog stretched when the engine hissed to a stop. Leash clipped, paws hit gravel. Cool air filled the lungs, cleaner than expected, the scent of damp earth and old wood. No familiar cars in the lot, no one waiting at the curb, just peace wrapped in fog. Main Street was 3 blocks long, maybe less. People passed with nods instead of questions. No curious stares, just polite glances and quiet steps. A woman swept her porch. A man unlocked his shop and waved without pausing. It was the kind of place where people minded their own business without being unfriendly. A place where you could disappear and still be seen. The room above the bookstore was small but clean. Wood-paneled walls, a bed with a faded quilt, a desk by the window that overlooked the hills. The window stuck when opened, but the breeze that came through was worth the effort. Bookshelves lined the downstairs shop, and the smell of paper and dust drifted up with the sound of pages turning. Rent paid in cash, no questions asked. Morning routines came quickly, early walks through winding paths, the dog sniffing every tree trunk like it held secrets. Dew on leaves, fog hanging low. A small diner opened at 7. Same waitress every day, same burnt coffee. She called everyone Hon and didn't ask where anyone came from, just poured refills and refilled them again. Days passed without interruption. Time slowed. The noise that once lived in the head began to fade. No buzzing phone, no clipped conversations, no background chatter demanding attention, just footsteps on gravel, birds overhead, and the steady rhythm of breathing. The notebook came out in the evenings. At first, the writing was stiff. Lists, thoughts, single words. Then the sentences grew. The voice steadied. Not a voice used for defending or explaining. Not words written in reaction to someone else. Just pieces of something long buried. Stories, memories, hopes not spoken aloud in years. The paper didn't judge. It just waited. Books filled the quiet spaces. Mysteries, histories, paperbacks with cracked spines and yellowed pages. Each one borrowed from the shelf downstairs, returned with a silent nod. Reading brought calm. Writing brought clarity. The dog brought presence, tail wagging, eyes watching, always near. A kind of company that didn't ask for more than a hand on the head and a steady walk. No schedules, no errands, no expectations. The quiet became something deeper than silence. It became space. Space to think, to feel, to remember without flinching. No one asked what he did for a living. No one cared about his past. The present was enough. The coffee was hot, the mornings cool, and the days rolled on like a stream that didn't need direction. There were moments of ache, yes. A song played faintly from a passing truck. The smell of a certain soap in the diner bathroom. A child laughing in a way that echoed too close to memory. But they passed. Not with pain, but with weight. A weight he could carry now without breaking under it. The face in the mirror looked older but lighter, less like someone holding in a scream, more like someone who'd finally let go of one. The notebook filled slowly, no rush. Each word was a stone set into a path leading forward, not toward anyone else, just toward a self long forgotten. This place didn't heal anything overnight, but it didn't demand he hide his wounds either. It let them air out, let them rest, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, each breath didn't feel borrowed, each step didn't feel measured. There was no clock ticking behind his ribs, just the slow rhythm of a life that didn't ask for anything but truth. Not a new beginning, just a quiet one, and that was enough. The phone buzzed on the nightstand, screen lighting up in the dim room. One message, short, simple, from someone not heard from in months. Just a name and a line. You should see what she posted. The coffee had gone cold. The dog snored quietly by the window. Outside, fog settled across the hills, softening the outlines of the world. But the glow of that screen burned sharp and bright. Not a call, not a confrontation, just a breadcrumb from the past, left to stir something that had barely started to settle. No account anymore. Deleted it all before leaving. Emails, photos, messages. Wiped clean like scrubbing a wall that had been written on too many times. But even without a name or face attached, it didn't take much to look. A burner account created in minutes. Random photo, no friends. Just a key to peek back into a world that never really saw him. Her profile came up instantly. Same smile in the profile picture, same polished captions. Always curated, always glowing. The woman who planned perfect holidays, posed beside themed desserts, tagged everyone but him. This time, though, something different stood at the top. A photo from last Christmas. She and the kids smiling in front of the tree, lights twinkling, matching pajamas. He was in the background, out of focus, holding a tray of food. Blurred, almost cropped out. The caption above it stretched, long and dramatic. If anyone sees my husband, please tell him we're sorry. We miss him. We didn't realize what we had until he left. The words didn't hit like a punch. They didn't even sting. They sat there, hollow and performative, arranged neatly to earn attention. No names, no truth, just enough ambiguity to let people draw their own conclusions. The comments came fast, one after the other: old co-workers, distant cousins, neighbors who never stayed long enough to ask how he was. He always seemed so kind. What happened? You never know what someone's going through. Praying he finds his way back to you all. Dozens, then hundreds, each one a brick in the wall she was building around her story, one designed to look beautiful from the outside. A woman abandoned, a family broken, a man who vanished. Then came the brother-in-law, the same one who used to crack jokes about his job, borrow tools, and never return them. His comment was pinned near the top. He's a good man, we messed up. The scroll paused there, not because the words were surprising, but because they were new. A shift in tone, still vague, still too little, too late, but something different. The cursor hovered for a moment. The fingers didn't move. No reply, no message, no correction, nothing to defend, nothing to explain. Let them talk, let them guess, let them praise a version of him they never really knew. The post wasn't an apology, it wasn't regret, it was a performance, a desperate attempt to reclaim the spotlight, not to find him, but to manage the story. And still the anger didn't boil. It rose for a moment, then melted. What was the point? The truth didn't need an audience. It lived in the quiet now, in the walks through the fog, in the warmth of a dog sleeping at his feet, in the clean space of a life no longer owed. A note went into the notebook that night, a simple sentence, written steady and sure. They only missed the version of me that paid the bills. Not the man, not the years, not the weight, just the role. The phone powered down, the glow vanished. The room returned to stillness. No need to correct the record, no desire to fight for attention. The performance could go on without him. Let the silence be his answer. Let the truth be what he chose to carry quietly. Let them scroll. Let them guess. He wasn't part of the story anymore. The voice on the other end of the line was professional, steady, and unsurprised. A few security questions, a pause, then a confirmation. The accounts were still active, still joined, still bearing a name that had given more than just income for 2 decades. The request came simply: remove the name, end the link, close the loop. The answer wasn't difficult. We can take care of that, the woman said. Do you want confirmation by email or phone? Phone for now, no digital trace, no emails left open by mistake. The steps were methodical: joint savings separated, mortgage, autodraft cancelled, credit cards deactivated, streaming services, utilities, tuition transfers, grocery store memberships, all of it. The small things that made a house run, quietly supported by someone who was no longer there. One by one, the ties were cut. Each call began the same way, with a soft tone and an account number. Each ended with a click that echoed louder than the last. It wasn't done in anger. It wasn't done with the desire to leave them in ruins. It was a hand finally letting go of a rope that had burned for far too long. The lawyer spoke in calm terms. Property divisions, alimony claims, financial contributions, a trail of receipts and deposits, medical expenses paid, student loans co-signed, down payments made without question. He listened carefully, noting that the records were detailed, undeniable. Every figure had a date, a name, a line item. Every action was written proof that walking away didn't erase 20 years of showing up. The documents were prepared. Nothing flashy, just facts. Clean, sharp lines drawn across the page where once everything was shared. No demand for revenge, no desire to take more, only a clear boundary. What's mine is mine. What's yours is no longer my responsibility. The phone lit up with the first message just after dinner. One line: why isn't the electric bill paid? An hour later, another: the kids' tuition didn't go through. What are you doing? Then came the longer ones. I can't believe you would do this to them. To me, we're still your family. This isn't fair to the kids. No apology, no reflection, just confusion turning to blame. Each message came with a different tone: angry, pleading, accusatory. The rhythm was familiar. The expectation that he would fix it, make the call, send the payment, say sorry. The screen stayed dark. No reply sent, no explanations offered, Not this time, not anymore. It wasn't cruelty, it wasn't silence as punishment. It was the absence of permission, the removal of access, the end of service. Each ignored text was a brick set gently in a new wall, not to keep people out, but to hold something up, to give structure to a life that no longer bent for others, to protect a peace that had taken too long to find. The messages didn't stop, they shifted. I don't recognize you anymore. You're being selfish. You left everything broken. But nothing was broken. Not anymore. The cracks had always been there, now they simply had to face them. The final message of the night came in bold, desperate letters. You're abandoning your children. But children grow up, and grown children learn the weight of responsibility when someone else is no longer carrying it for them. The phone was powered off, set in a drawer, wrapped in a scarf, out of reach. No anger, no second thoughts, just quiet. Downstairs the kettle steamed. The dog stretched. The clock ticked forward, not loud, just steady. A book lay open on the arm of the chair. The evening returned to stillness, undisturbed. The house they used to share would still stand. The bills would still need paying. The meals would still need cooking. The things he once did without being asked would now need to be seen for what they were. And if not, that was fine too. It was never about recognition. It was about release. The voicemail came just after midnight, the phone buzzing against the wood of the nightstand, lighting up a room otherwise swallowed in calm. One missed call, one voice message. The name on the screen glowed with a weight it hadn't carried in months. Familiar, distant, and suddenly urgent. No second guesses, no delay. Just a press of the thumb and a voice breaking the quiet. Dad, it's me. I don't know where to start. A pause. She's losing it. I mean, really losing it. 1 second she's yelling, the next she's crying, and then she's just gone, staring at nothing. Another pause, breathing. I thought she was strong. I thought she had everything under control. But the house, Dad, it's falling apart. The fridge isn't working. The sink's leaking again. Zeke's crashing on the couch, and they argue constantly. He's useless. You knew that. I should have known that. The voice cracked a little. I get it now. I didn't before. I didn't see it. I thought you were just background noise, always there. But now everything's loud and wrong without you. I didn't see what you did for us. I didn't understand what you held together. Another breath, this one heavier. I'm sorry. The message ended there. No goodbye, no plea to call back, just silence. The screen dimmed, fading back into the dark. The reply didn't take long to write. No paragraphs, no guilt, just truth, plain and small. I'm okay, I'm listening. Not a door wide open, not a wall rebuilt, just a light turned on in a hallway that had been dark too long. The message sent without a second thought. No typing, deleting, rewording. It didn't need to be more. It didn't need to be a fix. It just needed to be heard. Outside, the hills lay still, the stars sharp and watching. The dog stirred in his sleep, then settled again. The air held the scent of pine and something crisp, something clean. No rush to reply further, no plan to pack, no bags, no roads leading back to the place where the crown still sat in a drawer, and the walls remembered too much. It wasn't vindication. It wasn't about being proven right. It was about a shift, a voice that once rolled its eyes now cracked under the weight of things once ignored. A son who once shrugged off effort now stood ankle-deep in what it took to carry a family. There were no loud emotions, no tears, just a quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, the ones left behind were starting to feel what had been carried in silence for years, not with cruelty, not with punishment, just with clarity. The reply wasn't a promise, it wasn't an invitation, it was a signal. A small lighthouse left flickering in the fog. A sign that said, you're not shut out, but you're not let in yet either. Trust wasn't a light switch, it was a slow rebuild, one honest moment at a time. The notebook on the desk lay open to a blank page, not for writing tonight, just for sitting with the message, letting it settle, letting it be real. The voice had changed, the tone had shifted, no longer full of ego or dismissal. It sounded like someone who had touched the chaos and finally understood the cost of quiet strength. No anger followed, no pressure to respond, just a silence that felt less like an absence and more like a space waiting to be respected. The phone was placed gently on the desk, not face down, not silenced, just there, and for now that was enough. The courthouse was quiet, the kind of quiet that only came after everything had already been said. Papers signed, hands not shaken, eyes not met. The gavel hadn't slammed, no one raised their voice, but it was done. Separation official, no alimony, no more shared accounts, no more shared anything. Just two people who had once built a life, now walking away from it like strangers passing in a hallway. The car ride back was long, but not heavy. No thoughts pulled at the steering wheel. No regrets rattled in the glove box. The road twisted through hills painted gold by the afternoon sun, and the town welcomed back its quiet resident like he'd never left. A paper bag waited on the porch. Tucked in neatly, the top folded twice with care. No note, no knock, just warmth radiating from inside it. He opened it slow, and the scent told the story before he even looked inside. Peach cobbler, sweet, familiar. The crust a little uneven, the way it always turned out when she made it. The door creaked open before he could step inside. She was already there, leaning against the frame, hands shoved into the pockets of a jacket too light for the season. Her smile was soft, the kind that wasn't reaching for anything, just resting. She didn't say hi, she didn't have to. They sat on the porch again, the same way they had before. Same chairs, same stretch of hills in front of them, different air, easier now. No tension underneath their breathing. I figured you might want the real thing this time, she said, gesturing to the cobbler. Not just a memory. The first bite was slow. The second came easier. She didn't stare, didn't press for a reaction. She just watched the sky shift colors and pulled her knees up to her chest, like she used to when she was little and barefoot on summer nights. School's going okay, she said. I changed majors, again. Art now feels closer to me. He nodded, a sip of coffee, a pause that didn't need to be filled. She kept going. I've been drawing a lot, people, faces, you, actually, from memory. That photo from your birthday kept showing up in my head, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. How we all laughed, how you didn't. Her voice dipped low. It wasn't funny. None of it was. You were holding all of us, and we treated you like furniture, expected, silent, always there. The breeze carried her words out into the open, let them land gently. You were never a letdown, Dad, she said, turning to meet his eyes. You were the glue. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It held something sacred. A truth finally spoken. A weight lifted without force. He didn't reply right away, just took another bite, swallowed carefully, looked out at the hills like they were hearing it too. She stood when the sky darkened, brushing crumbs from her jeans. I don't know if you're coming back, she said, voice calm, not asking. But I wanted you to know I see it now. I see you now. She leaned in for a hug. This time he held on first. The car pulled away slow, headlights disappearing over the curve of the road. The porch light flickered once, then steadied. The bag with the cobbler sat empty on the table, the fork tucked neatly beside it. Inside, the lamp cast a soft glow across the wooden floor. The dog lay curled near the door, tail thumping once before settling. The notebook waited on the desk, worn now, pages full. A blank one left open, clean and ready. The pen moved without pause, the final line written without hesitation. I didn't leave because I stopped loving them. I left because I finally started loving myself. The cover closed with a quiet click. No applause, no ending credits. Just peace. The hills outside stood silent and steady, and for the first time that silence felt like home.